All right, let's talk. Let's talk, y'all. How we doing tonight? Ty Butler in the house. Ty D Butler is where you can find me on Twitter, Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are on YouTube and Twitter right now. My man Justin 48, Justin 48, gonna hop on the show in a moment here. To talk about the New York Jets, who have had an eventful day, to say the least. We thought they were only in the market for a defensive coordinator and for a quarterback. We then learned a couple of hours ago they are also now in the market for an offensive coordinator. So just imagine being a Jet fan right now. And as someone is trying to sell you on why you should be optimistic about this team going forward, Aaron Glenn has a plan. The infrastructure in place is going to help get them to where they finally can end this playoff drought. He's a leader of man. He's got all of these things working for him. And yet, fresh off of a 3-14 season, we were sitting here on January 27th. No quarterback, no offensive coordinator, no defensive coordinator. And that properly illustrates just how many failures we've had so far on the season with this team. I mean, think about how bad you have to be. And as we sit here, my mic went out again. Shout out Kevin. But that's $30 million you set on fire if you are the New York Jets. $30 million you just set on fire. Quarterback, you acknowledge, was a disaster. So you benched him. Your defensive coordinator, you acknowledged, was a huge mistake. So you fired him. And now the offensive coordinator, it sounds like you actually wanted to bring him back, but in the conversation was he was going to get demoted, and that was just not something he was interested in being a part of. So you've now gone through all these coaches. We're up to 9 different guys you're looking for on this coaching staff. So for all of the people who were in my mentions talking about, I'm being too hard on Aaron Glenn, it's the media's fault. They've turned fans against this head coach. Watch the product. This man told us this season you were going to have a football team you were proud of. And I ask you, tell me the time you watched them this year and you felt proud to be a fan of the New York Jets. At what point did you just acknowledge? Did you just accept? It's over. We're just delaying the inevitable. Which begs the question. And I saw Damian Woody put this out there earlier today on Twitter. If you're going to clean house on your coaching staff, why not just fire the coach? You're going to let him hire a brand new staff? And now he's operating with desperation? You are never going to be more attractive than you are right now. You've got the second pick. You've got all this cap space. You've got 5 first-rounders in the next 2 years. And you're going to just run it back with this head coach who is clearly in over his head, overwhelmed. He's got no idea what he's doing. And that just has to infuriate you if you're a Jet fan. Like, when does it end? When is enough enough? When do you just cut your losses? All season long. And this is what angers me because people really try to make it seem like we were Rich Samini was the problem. Rich Samini was the biggest impediment for the Jets because of the negative reporting he had. Rich Samini, who got a scoop on Garrett Wilson's injury that proved to be correct, by the way, played that silly game. Ass Rich played the silly games of we're not going to tell you who our starting quarterback is. We want to keep teams guessing because we feel like we've got a competitive advantage. Delaying announcing whether it's Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor. What an absolute joke. This head coach came in guns blazing. Wanted to take on the media for what? What were you trying to do? What were you trying to accomplish? And I've made this point a bunch of times. It's really difficult to be bad and unlikable. Because fairly or unfairly, that is going to some degree taint your image and your reputation and the coverage. People are going to report all the facts, but you might have been afforded some benefit of the doubt from the fans. Had you purported yourself to be a professional, which from day one, Aaron Glenn did not do. The way he handled the Aaron Rodgers exodus, the way he sat up there week after week, challenging the media, being combative unnecessarily. You're a bad football team. You started 0-7. The plan wasn't to punt at the trade deadline. The plan was not to trade away your best players. That was not the plan. But you were so awful. You were so embarrassing. Not only did you have to become sellers at the deadline, you fired your defensive coordinator, you benched your starting quarterback, and now you're in the market for an offensive coordinator. And 7 other assistant coaches. And we've got to sit here and have what? Faith in you, a guy who's never done it before? Why? Because now you've wisened up and you're going to start to call some of your plays on defense. Take a look at those Lions defenses. Is that a good thing? It's so frustrating. So frustrating. And a lot of it has to do with the people who were gaslighting me in my mentions, telling me, yo, Ty, it's your fault. You're the problem. Aaron Glenn's doing, he's doing a pretty good job. It's just that the media is so negative. You guys are setting him up to fail. I tried to tell y'all, you realize how much more fun the job would be for Zach Rosenblatt, for Connor Rogers, for Bart Scott, for Rich Samini, for Willie Colon, for Steve Gelbs, for all of these, Brian Costello. Do you understand how much more fun the job would be if you are showing up every day to cover a functional football team that wins games? You know how much fun they're having in New England? While everyone wants to sit up there and impugn the Patriots' accomplishment because of the quote-unquote easy schedule they play. They're in the Super Bowl. You know how fun it is for those reporters, those members of the media to cover a team that is 12 days away from playing in the Super Bowl? Do you know how much fun it has to be for if you're a Seahawks reporter covering a team? I mean, that is just littered with storylines, right? Mike McDonald in year 2. That amazing defense, similar to what we saw a decade ago with the Legion of Boom. John Schneider and the tremendous job he's done with that roster. That was a blockbuster trade for Sam Darnold. And people have been on Twitter going at Mina Kimes. She's a Seahawks fan. By the way, people are allowed to get things wrong, man. And she's been front and center saying, "Yo, I was way off on this." But Mina Kimes, Seahawks fan, does an amazing job. How much fun she has to be having right now. You don't think the Jet beat reporters want to be on that same wavelength? Y'all idiots going at them because of their biased reporting, as if there's actually a positive story underneath the layers of a team that for 15 straight years has missed the playoffs, that for 10 straight years hasn't finished above 500, that since Brian Schottenheimer back in 2006 to 2011, the Jets have not had an offensive coordinator last more than 2 seasons. That's not a media-driven narrative. That's not us being negative. That is us spitting facts that right now, this is in the conversation. The New York Jets are in the conversation for one of the worst organizations in all of sports. It's not a hot take. That's facts. How is it possible that on January 27th, you still, as a returning head coach, you still don't have a DC and you still don't have an offensive coordinator? Why did it take you 23 days to decide Tanner Engstrand wasn't good enough? The hell is happening here? Like, all of this just feels, I want to say it's unbelievable, but then again, it's like, well, it's the Jets, so of course this is going to happen. But how is it possible for you to be this bad? I've got no experience running a football team. I can be this bad. Yo, it's insane to me. It is absolutely, absolutely insane. Hit me up in the comments. It is, and we've said this for far too many days, a tough day to be a Jet fan. Because I got a text from one of my boys. He's like, see you in 2027. So we're already punting on next season. That's where we are. We're already punting on next season because there's no reason to have confidence that next year is going to be any better than this year was when you won 3 games. 3 games. And you're beating backup quarterbacks. Very well could have gone 0-17. And the sad part about it is I'm not even convinced that if you had gone 0-17, you would have fired Aaron Glenn. Because that's how in love with this dude Woody Johnson is. Now, Aaron Glenn's a brother. I would love to see him succeed, man. Nothing would make me happier that, more than in a league where there's been clear and obvious issues as it pertains to the hiring of black head coaches and minority head coaches. Nothing would make me happier than to see my football team hire one and him take them to new heights, him excel at the highest level. But I'm going to keep it a stack with y'all. From the moment he was hired, I was like, this ain't it, man. This ain't it. I first guessed it. It was like, I'm not excited about this. I'm not enthused. This was not it. Off the rip, I knew it wasn't it. And now there's no confidence that it gets better. No confidence whatsoever that it gets better. So we're going to be sitting here a season from now having the same old conversation. Except the difference is, not only are you going to be looking for a quarterback and an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, you're going to be looking for a head coach. So I can honestly save this stream right here and just run it back a year from now. Because this is what it feels like. We're on the treadmill. We're running in place. We're not going anywhere. It's it's just frustrating at this point, and it's so exhausting. By the way, while we wait on Justin 48 to hop up on the stream here, can we talk about how ridiculous it is? And I would love to hear from you in the comments. So Bill Belichick, it was just announced, did not get into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. And as we're like combing through the details of this story, we are learning that apparently Bill Polian had something to do with this. Now you can't just blame Bill Polian because Belichick needed 40 or 50 votes and he fell short of that. 8-time Super Bowl winning head coach, 6 as a head coach, 2 as a defensive coordinator, not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Bill Belichick falls short of the 40 or 50 votes needed for induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. It's a disgrace. There are no two ways about it. No coach who has ever walked the planet was better at doing his job than Bill Belichick was. And this is coming from a Jet fan. I despised him. I detested him. I'm annoyed about what he did in the early 2000s, where he takes the job, he resigns 3 days later, and just changes, I mean, quite literally the course of NFL history. So I've got no love for Belichick. I've got no love for him. But if this dude isn't worthy of being a first ballot Hall of Famer, then that means no one is. That means no one is. Think about the uproar people were in about Eli not getting in on a first ballot. And this is not even taking shots at Eli. But Bill Belichick, I guess the only win, and it does, and for Belichick, it's not going to matter. But the only win is that all of a sudden you're going to have like universal love for Belichick going into next year when he finally gets into the Hall of Fame. Universally celebrated, loved, because look, people obviously were not fans of how he treated the media. His engagement with them just was so at times distasteful, but just such a turn off. And then he's got the weirdness with the young girl as he goes to UNC. Like all of it presented him as someone, I don't want to say as someone who was unlikable, but it was just like a take it or leave it kind of thing. But now Bill Belichick has the world on his side like never before. People will be in droves defending this man, and rightfully so, because how do you not put him in the Hall of Fame first ballot? He is the single greatest head coach of all time. You can argue the best head coach in North American sports history. Now, granted, it did not end well in New England, and the Jets did, send that dude. They did send him back, and they packed him up. His final game as a coach in the NFL was a loss to the New York Jets, which, by the way, helped the Patriots get Drake May. But, I mean, this is nonsensical. Like, there's no explanation for it. And I honestly, the voters who voted against Belichick, I want them to be dragged. I want them to be embarrassed. I want them to be mortified. Because this is, when it comes to, now obviously there are bigger issues in the world. So I use this term loosely, but this is heinous. If there is a such thing as a sports crime, this is what we're talking about. How do you not put Bill Belichick in a Hall of Fame first ballot? What an absolute disgrace. It now means we can't take your Hall of Fame seriously. What are we doing here? How are you not putting Bill Belichick in a Hall of Fame first ballot? It's a Man, I wonder if we are going to have the release of all the names. Just come out and be honest. And now what we're reading about is Bill Polian, as I mentioned, had something to do with this. Because I'm looking at the article. It says a voter who spoke on condition of anonymity said that Polian, an ardent Kraft supporter and former general manager of the Buffalo Bills and Indianapolis Colts, a chief Patriots rival during their dynasty, told some voters he believed Belichick should wait a year before induction as penance for Spygate, the 2007 cheating scandal that cost the team a first round draft pick. I mean, he got his consequence. They were docked a first round pick. They also got fined. The organization did $500,000. Belichick got fined 250 grand. So we're using Spygate. We're using Spygate as a reason to keep him off the out of the Hall of Fame for the first ballot. But then we're just gonna vote him in next year. So what's he suffering? Like if that's your punishment, then it actually has to mean something. There has to be now. Obviously, there's significance, I guess, overall, as far as like getting in first ballot versus second ballot. But in the end, you are choosing to use Spygate as punishment to keep Belichick out of the Hall of Fame when he's on the ballot. It's just so ridiculous. CBS Sports article. Polian is ready to admit he was wrong to say before the 2018 draft that Jackson would be better off switching from quarterback to receiver. So people are bringing that back. But come on, man. You think Spygate, like that should be the penalty? That's crazy, man. Bill Polian finally getting his revenge on Bill Belichick. That's crazy. And the NFL, I mean, it's a disgrace. It's a bad look for the league. It's a bad look for the voters. And I mean, this isn't just Bill Polian because he needed 40 votes of 50 and he fell shy of that. So at least 11 guys sided with Bill Polian. And that's just so pathetic, man. It is so pathetic. And so we sit here today, Bill Belichick not in the Hall of Fame. Bill Polian should be ashamed of himself. He should be absolutely ashamed of himself. I would love to hear you get up on a microphone and tell the people why you decided he should not be in the Hall of Fame. We're supposed to be this unbiased media. We're supposed to be unbiased. The what was her name? Lynn Jones, who took 10 seconds after the Jags lost to the Bills in her press conference just to say, Liam Cohn, keep your head up. Hell of a job. The city is proud of you. You'll be back next year. And she got excoriated. So I want to see that same smoke for Bill Polian, who right now is leading the charge for keeping the greatest coach in NFL history out of the Hall of Fame because he needed his get back. Embarrassing. What are you doing? And this dude should not be allowed to vote anymore. He should not be allowed to vote. Shouldn't be allowed to vote. Take his vote away. Take his vote away. We're going to have this thing come down to politics. You want your get back. You want him to serve a 1-year sentence. Insanity. Mr. Shaman, 76. Every voter who didn't vote for him should lose their vote. Also, make these MFers name public. Listen, I 100% agree. Make the names public. We want to hear from y'all. Because at least when Jeter and we took exception to him not getting in unanimous, he got into the Hall of Fame. And we wanted to hear who the voter was. Let's find out who these voters are that kept Belichick out of the Hall of Fame. You should not be allowed to vote anymore. You cannot be a student of NFL history. By the way, it doesn't even take the smartest football brain to see this dude should be in the Hall of Fame. And this is what we're doing. All these people pretending they don't have any biases. Come on now. Pathetic. Pathetic. Lose your voting privileges for good. You lose your voting privileges for good. If we're strictly looking at the resume. If we're strictly looking at the resume. There's no excuse. All right. Let's get back to the Jets. We are having quickly, you got one more comment. Mr. Shaman, 76. The greatest NFL head coach and defensive coordinator of all time is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm a Giants fan. It absolutely is outrageous. It absolutely is. The greatest football mind, greatest defensive coach, the greatest coach, period. 8-time champion. And I get how it ended in New England. And we had fun with who meant more to the Patriots dynasty? Was it Brady or Belichick? We can do that. We can play those games. But when it comes to how the history of the sport is narrated, how many sentences deep into a Wikipedia page do we go before we hear the name Bill Belichick? And this is the guy y'all chose to keep out of the Hall of Fame? Come on now. What are we doing? So Brady, because of Spygate, when he's up for Hall of Fame induction, year one, he's not getting in? What an insane thing to do. No one man should have all that power. This is the one, and it's the one time on social media where you can get a bunch of people to be in unison on a topic, which it's hard to come by. Like, those topics are hard to come by. You get someone fired up about a topic and you get takes ringing off on social media, it's hard to get everyone universally agreeing on one topic. And that seems to be the case here because it is a disgrace. Utter madness. Utter madness. But whatever. About the New York Jets. Back to the topic at hand. They are in shambles. For those of you who are just joining us, I voiced my anger, my ire when it comes to this situation. You can run through the list of failures last year: the quarterback, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn picked all of those guys. So what does that tell me? He's also a failure. And you also have to wonder now, are any of these jobs attractive? We sit here 12 days before the Super Bowl. We're about to be in February, and the Jets are still looking for a defensive coordinator and an offensive coordinator. Are any of those jobs attractive? Are any of those jobs attractive? Any of them? Knowing that a year from now, everyone's getting fired. Aaron Glenn doesn't know what he's doing. He's not cut out at this point to be a head coach. He's overwhelmed, can't manage the clock, can't manage the game, can't pick personnel. And he's bad with the media. And whatever plan he has, whatever the strategy was, listen, you went 3-14 last year. The team was an abomination. You went an entire season without an interception. And you're a former cornerback. You started the year 0-7. You traded away your best players at the deadline. Who wants the offensive coordinator job? Now, maybe Frank Reich takes this job. It looks like he's the front runner right now, and that would be a tremendous hire for the Jets if they could get Frank Reich, as Aaron Glenn is looking for, to be the head coach of the offense, to oversee that operation on that side of the ball. That would be fantastic. But it's not an attractive job right now. Defensive coordinator, it doesn't look like that guy is going to have all the power because, according to reports, Aaron Glenn is going to be calling more plays, which, look, I actually like that. I like Aaron Glenn going down with the ship. He's deciding if this thing is going to fail, at least we're going to fail with my vision, with what I have envisioned for this team. But, bruh, you feel my pain right now with the Jets because I just don't see it getting better. That's the thing. Like, I'm watching New England, a team that won 4 games last year. Draft the right quarterback, hire the right head coach, and in a blink, they figured it out. The Patriots have been to 5 Super Bowls since the Jets last made the playoffs. So that's why it's so painful, because in a league where it actually can change quickly, and we've run through the examples. The Chicago Bears ended their season a year ago, losing 10 straight games. Or I guess it was 10 of 11. I don't really count week 18 against the Packers because the Packers weren't playing anyone. But they ended their year losing 10 of 11 games. They made the divisional round of the playoffs. New England, we just talked about, 4-win team. They're in the Super Bowl. So it can't. Look at the Jags, the type of season they had. Get the right head coach in there, it can turn around. Which is why if you're a Giants fan, you're thinking to yourself, why not us? And they are going to be everyone's favorite pick to go from worst to first. 8.5 is the win total. You finally have a head coach in here who knows what he's doing. So it's like, all right, got the quarterback, got the head coach, and in the NFL, assuming no significant injury happens at quarterback, if you nail that combo head coach quarterback, your floor is making the playoffs. That's your floor. And the Jets don't have any of those things. So that's why I'm so deflated. And I'm also tired of talking about this. How many times do I got to come on here and talk about the same thing? About how my team can't get out of its own way. We're about to watch the Super Bowl. And I thought it was annoying enough to hear about the Sam Darnold revisionist history. Well, they should have kept him. When no one actually believes that. It's just a way to attack the Jets. It's low-hanging fruit. No one believes that. But now we have to be reminded about how dysfunctional this organization is, and I just can't take it. And I guess we will get to a day where before I die, God forbid, they actually make the playoffs again. And it's like, man, how refreshing does that feel? But I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where it's going to be like, well, it was worth the wait. No, because it could have happened sooner. Should have happened sooner. My man, Mr. Shaman chiming in. As a born and raised boogie downer, the rhymes be rhyming. Mets, Nets, and Jets. Yeah, it's bad, man. At least the Mets have what looks like a plan, and they are a better team headed into this upcoming season than they were last year. The Nets can't really help you there. They've got a bunch of draft picks. You hope that pans out. And I think once Donovan Mitchell hits the trade block, they should be in on him. The Jets, it's just like we're just having the same conversation. We're just kind of, remixing the owners things. And yes, this goes back to Woody Johnson because Woody Johnson is the worst owner in sports. And so when this consistently happens on your watch, you've got to bear the brunt of the criticism. There's no running from that. Now, what I will say, I guess, and this is going to be sacrilegious, to defend Woody Johnson, what we asked him to do last year was to take a step back, realize that football was not your expertise. You're just rich. And you were rich enough to own a football team. But that's not exactly your expertise. So I don't need you sitting here negotiating contracts with Hassan Reddick. I don't need you facilitating trades for Devontae Adams. I don't need you coming in after week 5, firing the head coach. We need more of a hands-off approach. We don't need you discussing which safety should be benched and the quarterback should be benched. Sit there and hire people and get your ass out the way. So to defend Woody Johnson, if I can, what we wanted him to do was to relinquish his personnel decision-making power, and he's done that. And now he's trusted a head coach, unfortunately, who is clueless and has no idea what's going on. Because let's not get it twisted. Aaron Glenn's not long for this job. And I would imagine, guys, that if somehow they start 0-7 again, it's clipped. He's not going to last an entire season if they are as bad as they were a year ago. It's just not going to happen. Just not going to happen. Not going to happen. So, and you know what the problem is too? Even if they find a quarterback, even if the Jets find a quarterback, you're still not going to have confidence they can develop said quarterback. You're not going to trust that he can fix this. When you got your quarterback, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator wrong, and 7 other coaches, it's just hard to convince anyone you're going to fix this. I saw this weekend, just to hit on this real quick, that the Jets were talking to Wink Martindale. And the only reason you'd be excited about that is because of the so-called success he had with the Giants. We saw him last in New York. Back in 2022, the Giants were second in the NFL in fumble recoveries. And then in 2023, they were number 1 in takeaways. And so if you're a Jet fan watching the team struggle, taking the ball away from the other team last year, then that feels like, man, the Giants were the 2000 Ravens compared to what that offer product we saw was on the field. And so that would be where your excitement lies. But this is a guy who, since then hasn't been in the NFL. It ended terribly with Brian Dable. His defenses of late haven't been good. You're in 2021 with the Ravens, they fell to a bottom third defense. He got fired. And none of the overall total defensive numbers for the Giants outside of takeaways were good. And so they were opportunistic, but clearly between his attitude and the lack of productivity wasn't good enough for the Giants. And if you want to blame Brian Dable for it, that's fine. Problem is Brian Dable about to get hired by the Tennessee Titans. Wink Martindale hasn't been in the league since his Giants stint. And so he's a hot name who might be someone where his best days are just behind him. And I gotta be honest, like that doesn't excite me. I guess you can't do much worse than Steve Wilkes, but honestly, this feels a lot like Steve Wilkes 2.0 than it does the Jets actually upgrading. That's what it feels like. George chimes in. George Farhees, 3082 wink, ain't it? He's all blitz and that's it. Yeah, and he'll get you excited because the Jets will pick up some explosive plays on defense where quarterbacks are pressured and it'll lead to a sack that takes the team to 2nd and 19, or under duress there will be some turnovers for us. But as far as his total defense, I'm with you, man. It's just not going to work out the way that we want it to. And George is speaking from a Giant fan perspective. I agree. And I also don't see how those personalities are going to mesh. You've got two alphas, two big personalities. That feels combustible. And so I'm not excited about that. I am not excited about that at all. Jim Leonard was a name that we were floating around, but it looks like he could end up in Buffalo. Joe Brady's got the head coaching job there, and so it doesn't look like the Jets are going to have their chance to get him. But we'll have to see. It's probably going to be a young mind since Aaron Glenn's going to be running that defense anyway. And an offensive coordinator. I mentioned Frank Reich. You saw the Broncos just fired Joe Lombardi. So maybe that's a name. He's got some crossover with Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn was a player in New Orleans at the time that Joe Lombardi was as an assistant on that staff, I believe. Let me double check that. Uh, yeah, he was an assistant in New Orleans from 2007 to 2013. So there's some overlap between Aaron Glenn and Joe Lombardi, which means that that type of connection can possibly lead to uh, him coming on board here. It's possible he could come on board here, but we'll see, man. We'll see what they decide to do. Hire Davis Webb as the offensive coordinator if he's not the head coach. Listen, Davis Webb has got a lot of promise, and people are raving about Davis Webb. A lot of promise. I don't know, and this goes back to the point um, that I made earlier. If you are a guy like Davis Webb, who's a hot name on the market right now, and it looks like he is interviewing for the Raiders, the Jets are just not an attractive destination because that thing is going to get blown up next year anyway. Why would you want to be the head coach, or why would you want to be the offensive coordinator of a team you know is getting blown up next year? So would I love Davis Webb? Of course. I don't think that a big time name wants that job. I don't think a big time name wants that job. And maybe actually, if he doesn't get a job, he gets promoted to offensive coordinator for the Broncos because the Broncos fired Joe Lombardi, as I mentioned. So it'd be interesting to see. He's in the running for the Raiders job. Uh, maybe he gets that, or maybe Clint Kubiak gets that Raiders job, and we see Davis Webb possibly get promoted to the Broncos OC. Maybe because people were looking at the fire of Joe Lombardi and thinking like, why would Sean Payton do that? Like he was not the problem, but maybe Sean Payton wants to keep Davis Webb as long as possible and decided if I fire Lombardi, I can elevate Davis Webb. This is more attractive for him. He's Davis Webb's not going to Cleveland, and we don't think he's going to get the Raider job. That'll probably go to Clint Kubiak, who's coaching in the Super Bowl. So maybe that was his way of trying to keep Davis Webb. Make him the head coach of Glenn fails. The problem is once Aaron Glenn fails, I think the Jets are going to go the route that your Giants just went, and that is established head coach. You need someone in here who is going to command the attention and the respect of that locker room because he comes in here with credibility. That's why it's so funny. People are laughing at what the Steelers did hiring Mike McCarthy. And it's like you look at Mike McCarthy, Sean Payton, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, they're all the same guy, really. They're all the same guy. One Super Bowl. All of them have had a Hall of Fame quarterback. People in varying degrees have perceived them as underachievers. So I think the Jets, once Aaron Glenn fails, will try to go the route of an established head coach. Kurt Kubiak is better. I think you're trying to say Clint Kubiak. Jets need a clean sweep of coaches next year. NWO with all the quarterbacks coming out. Yeah, but we said this last year. Remember we were talking about this quarterback class not great, but wait until next year's quarterback class. And then all those dudes fell off. And so we do this a ton where we think that the quarterback class of the next year is going to be unbelievably talented. And then we fall into the same trap of, oh, wait, no, it's not as good as we thought it was going to be. Joe Lombardi to the Jets has connections with Glenn Amuji. Yeah, I said that. Joe Lombardi was on that Saints staff with Aaron Glenn. So I guess there's a chance now that he's been fired, he can uh he can be next in line for Aaron Glenn's staff. There's a chance that can happen between him and Frank Reich. From the reports that I saw today, Frank Reich was the front runner. He's the front runner, but maybe the Joe Lombardi firing does change things a bit for Aaron Glenn. Does change things a bit for Aaron Glenn. Um, but isn't it amazing, guys? So the Jets have not had an offensive coordinator last more than 2 seasons on the job since Brian Schottenheimer, who was there from 2006 to 2011, which is just, I mean, dog. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like the lack of just continuity when it comes to that position. They can't find a quarterback. They can't find an offensive coordinator. It's just like impressively bad. My Giants should get Jody Douglas later this year. Yeah, I still have not come to terms with this whole Joe Shane is staying on board thing. Because there is a part of me that does feel like at some point he gets fired. Like maybe he gets them through the draft because he's already been part of the process, the draft and free agency, and then he gets canned. Or maybe John Harbaugh waits until the Giants start off slow next year, and then you need someone to blame, so you just kick him to the curb. But it's just it's so mystifying to me that he was able to keep his job, and that John Harbaugh, who cleaned the house, who's getting rid of coaches and staff members who have been there for 4 decades, out. Joe Shane, who's been there for 4 years and has been terrible, he stays. Yeah, I know he's lost all power, but it's still odd to keep him on board. Like, what's the point? Who do you prefer at 2-16? Well, Funny you asked that because there was an NFL mock draft that came out today from Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network that I did love. Um, and part of it was the Jets staying away from quarterback Ty Simpson at 60. I don't think Ty Simpson is the 16th pick. Arvell Reese seems to be like the consensus for the Jets at two. Edge rusher, Ohio State, and they need to improve that defense. And I think the defense can actually be better than it was last year. They just weren't very well coached. You also have, a guy like Jermaine Johnson coming off of uh, the Achilles injury. Now 2 years removed from that, should be a lot better. But Arvell Reese at number two, and then at number 16, Carnell Tate. So you finally get your number two wide receiver opposite Garrett Wilson, who obviously is coming off of an injury. So that mock draft I saw today, I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect. I still don't know who the quarterback is going to be. I was on TV this past Saturday night and was asked about um, Mac Jones. Would I be into that? And I'm like, man, if Mac Jones is bringing Kyle Shanahan, sure, I'd be into that. But uh, Mac Jones, Malik Willis, I don't want to. Don't give me the Tua or the Kyler Murray. I don't want baggage. I've already got baggage financially because they're still paying Aaron. They still got a dead cap hit from Aaron. They're gonna have a dead cap hit from Justin Fields. I don't need financial hurdles to overcome by acquiring quarterbacks like Kyler Murray or Tua, who I just don't trust anyway. So Kirk Cousins, I don't want that either. But as far as 2 and 16, I like Carnell Tate at 16 and then Arvell Reese at number two. That feels like a perfect draft for the Jets. I would have fired him after the Saquon situation, not because of the contract talks, but because he didn't pivot and trade him. Yeah, at the deadline, that was a big topic of conversation. If you're not going to um, re-sign him, why not just trade him at the deadline when you could try to get a pick for him? Like that didn't make any sense. Um, yeah. So that's how I feel about that. Uh, I'm sorry. I'm just reading responses here on Twitter. I'll put it up for you guys so you can see too. Just of people reacting to the Belichick stuff. Here's Jimmy Johnson. This is wrong. Number two winning all time. He's talking about coaching wins. More Super Bowls than anyone. Unimaginable number of division championships. Lots of small, jealous voters, which should never get in the way of the magnitude of what the vote is. Like the seriousness that we take the Hall of Fame. The seriousness that we operate with as it pertains to voting for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The prestige, the cachet. For some people, it's actually more impressive than winning a championship. And we're allowing jealousy, vendettas, get backs to become factors. Like, this is such an embarrassment for the league. It's such an embarrassment for the league. It is. You cannot allow these guys to stay on board as voters. You can't. It's crazy. But I guess that's what happens. He's getting roasted. Bill Polian is gonna get roasted, and rightfully so. All right. Any final thoughts before we get on out of here? Did a lot of Jets, Bill Belichick. Got the Super Bowl coming up. And look, as a Jet fan, I talked about this last night. I'm rooting for Sam Darnold. I don't think it's a black mark on the Jet franchise if he goes out there and wins a Super Bowl. Obviously, the biggest issue, and we've talked about it before, is like you had him in your building and you couldn't develop him, but we knew that already. I didn't need to see him win a Super Bowl to confirm the Jets, when it comes to their program, can't develop quarterbacks. So I thought he got a raw deal here from the standpoint of didn't have the right coaches around him, didn't have the right personnel, and taking number 3 overall, this was not a Zach Wilson situation. We looked at Zach and saw, yeah, he clearly just doesn't have it. Like that dude, just he's not a leader. He's unserious. There's zero accountability. Like he just is not an NFL quarterback. Sam Darnold, first play against Detroit, pick six, and then responded, rebounded, and we saw flashes. Unfortunately, wasn't enough to convince a new regime coming in that he was worthy of holding on to, especially when they had the second pick in the upcoming draft, and they had a decision to make on him as far as, are you going to pick up his fifth-year option? And so, look, we can, in retrospect, say Salah and Douglas made the wrong move, because had they kept Sam Darnold, they could have built a team around him, could have traded back, got a bunch of picks, and you could very well be sitting here with Sam Darnold as your quarterback going into a Super Bowl. So, look, it's a miserable experience to think that way, even though like it naturally happens as a fan. I I just I just think that the biggest loser in all of this has to be Minnesota. It has to be Minnesota. Jets should take Trinidad champ. That's risky, man. I guess you're gonna have to take a quarterback, right? You at some point are going to have to take a quarterback. Gonna have to take a quarterback. So we'll see if who that quarterback is. Are you fine with Tanner being let go, or would you have rather they kept him? Listen, I didn't think Tanner Engstrand was an issue last year. I didn't think that the play calling was what doomed the Jets. I thought they didn't have a quarterback. Their offensive line was pretty good. And I guess there's some criticism to go around about how they used Brees Hall. But you lost Garrett Wilson. You didn't have a number 2 receiver. You didn't have a quarterback. So I didn't look at Tanner Engstrand as some like failure for the Jets. But um Aaron Glenn's right now, he's operating with desperation. And he sees the writing on the wall that if he doesn't fix this thing pretty quickly, they're all going to be gone. So, am I fine with him being let go? Sure, if it lands me someone more experienced, because I'll be honest, when they first hired him, I was a little perplexed. He was a first time offensive coordinator. Yes, he was on that Detroit Lions staff, but I was not wowed by this move. And I thought that Aaron Glenn, who was coming in as a first year head coach, was going to have some experience on both sides of the ball. Brings that in with Steve Wilkes, though the experience was not great experience. But as far as him being let go, would I rather they have kept him? Listen, ask me this a week from now when I see who they hire. My biggest takeaway of this though is it is just more evidence of how disastrous last year was. When your entire staff is being made over, when you're cleaning house after 1 year, that is all the evidence you need to see about how disastrous he was in picking these guys. They weren't, and I love some dude hit me up last week, was like, yo, maybe he was forced to make these hires because he didn't have enough time because his team was in the playoffs last year. And I'm like, fam, they got bounced in the first round. The hell you mean he didn't have enough time? He knew this was potentially going to be his job, and this happens all the time. Kyle Shanahan lost a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator. Did a pretty damn good job building a staff, right? And by the way, you know who else was on that Detroit Lions staff? Ben Johnson. How'd they look this year? So don't give me excuses about he was forced because of a time crunch. Come on, man. Tate at 16, not going to be there. Yeah, I, he's probably not going to be there at 16. You're right. That's more wishful thinking. Look, the Giants might take him at 5. I would not be shocked at all if the Giants at number 5 pair Tate with Neighbors and Scatterbull. Maybe you bring Wandale back. I would not be surprised if Tate is off the board at number 5. So yeah, it's a little bit of wishful thinking, hoping he falls to number 16. Absolutely. If by the way, if I'm Baltimore at 14, I'm taking Carnell Tate. So yeah, it's. I mean, Kansas City might be might take a receiver, right? So it's a little bit of wishful thinking. You have teams. You have a couple of teams that could use a receiver on picking ahead of the Jet, or a bunch of teams that could use a receiver. Tennessee, the Giants, right? You've got um, Kansas City. You've got the Rams, the Ravens, like all these teams that could be in the market for a receiver. You get them in the draft. So yeah, it's very much wishful thinking to think that Tate is going to survive and fall all the way to 16. Do you think Aaron Glenn should call plays or hire somebody like Wink to run? I just said I'm not a fan of the Wink Martindale hire. That feels like a combustible relationship. Wink Martindale's last stint in the NFL ended with him clashing with an alpha type head coach in Brian Dable. Now you can say it was Brian Dable's fault. The other 31 teams decided the last 2 years to pass on Wink Martindale. So there's something to maybe his best days being behind him. There's something to him not being the easiest to work with. And if you're Aaron Glenn coming into a gotta have it year where you need to show massive improvement, I um I would imagine you go in a different direction because again that feels like it has high bust potential. For the Giants, I want to go offensive tackle, cornerback, or Tate at 5. Yeah, I think Tate would be the sexy move, but not surprised if they go defense. The Giants desperately need help on that defense. I didn't think their defense, just on paper, their defense should have been better than it was last year. And I think a lot of that for the Giants was horrendous coaching. They've certainly got more talent on that defense than we saw on display last year, where they were blowing leads left and right, man. Like the Giants, and it works out that you didn't win those games because now you got the 5th pick, and you could argue they won too many games. I'd rather have the 1st pick, even if I'm not taking a quarterback. I can hold teams hostage and then just blow them out of the water and get an abundance of picks. But the Giants, that secondary needs a lot of help. 2009 MGH says, "Yeah, I don't want Mink, Wink. I'm good on Wink Martindale." So hit me with your comments before we get on out of here. Any last minute thoughts? Any last minute questions? Um, hit me up just so we can get it popping. Want to hear from y'all. I appreciate you guys. Really do appreciate you guys weighing in on the show, showing love. Make sure y'all give me a follow on my social media platforms. Ty D Butler. You can see uh, on the screen here is my handle. So hit me up. Give me a follow on Instagram. Give me a follow on Twitter. Follow the TikTok page. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Ty D Butler. I would love to get some love and support from all of y'all here. I appreciate you guys hopping in the comments. I just want to make sure I'm gonna just do one last refresh of Twitter just to make sure there is no news that we're leaving out here. Uh, who is this? NFL staff writer SI Now Matt Verderami says, I just spoke on the phone with Bill Polian and asked whether he was an influence on Bill Belichick being snubbed by the Hall of Fame. His quote, that's totally and categorically untrue. I voted for him. So the plot thickens. The plot thickens. We all roasted Bill Polian. We all roasted that. Now, maybe he's lying. I don't know. Maybe he's lying, but I I guess it would be it's easy for him to prove that he's not lying, right? It'd be easy for him to prove that he's not lying because all he has to do is like say make my vote public and people will see that he's telling the truth. But he spoke on the phone with Matt. Let me try to pull up the tweet again. Hang on, let me try to pull up the tweet again so I can show you guys. So the plot thickens. Maybe this wasn't Bill Polian being a hater. We all thought this was Bill Polian just being a hater. And Matt Verderami says he just spoke on the phone and put it up for y'all. Here it is. I just spoke on the phone with Bill Polian and asked whether he was an influence on Bill Belichick being snubbed by the Hall of Fame. His quote, that's totally and categorically untrue. I voted for him. So we will, and people are saying he's lying, but he can prove it. Right? Like you can prove. I don't know what the rule is. You can make your vote public. Everyone's up in arms. You see LeBron weighing in. You see Patrick Mahomes weighing in. So this is a story that is going to be, I mean, quite the firestorm. It's going to be quite the firestorm. It's not going away. So very curious to see what ends up happening here. But as of right now, Bill Belichick's not a first ballot Hall of Fame. Are we praying for 0-17 in hopes of landing Arch and attracting talent? How does your organization going 0-17 make you attractive for a guy like Mike Tomlin? Does anyone believe Mike Tomlin, who comes from an organization of stability, who comes from an organization of solid ownership, great ownership, that dude wants to work for Woody Johnson? Is that what you're going to sit here and sell me on? Mike Tomlin, going from Pittsburgh, where he had 19 consecutive winning seasons, where they're about to hire just their fourth coach in franchise history. The model of stability. That dude wants to work for Woody Johnson? If you think that's the case, got a bridge to sell you. Every time I think the Jets have hit a new low, the Tim 16964 says, they find a way to prove me wrong. Join the party, man. Join the party. I thought 0-7 was a new low because we were talking about them going 0-17. And little did we know it was only going to get progressively worse. It was going to get so bad. They traded Sauce Gardner. And check this out. Going into next year, I had the tweet saved. Somebody had the cap situation. The biggest cap hits, and I was going to pull the tweet up for y'all, but I don't have it. The biggest cap hits are Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers and Sauce Gardner. Those are the three biggest cap hits going into next year. I just wish the team can have one normal season. We were slated for a normal season, man. 2023. Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. I believe in my heart of hearts. I don't know if they win the Super Bowl that year, but they were going to come close. That offensive line wasn't good enough. But Aaron pre-torn Achilles, that building was rocking. And I wasn't there. I'm just watching it on television. Breece Hall's run, the defense, man, 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 that is one of the most devastating injuries of my sports fandom. I remember Kobe, may God rest his soul, tearing his Achilles. That was in game 78 of the 2013 season. The Lakers were going to be the eighth seed. So, I mean, it was devastating. Obviously, broke my heart. I cried. Kobe's my favorite player of all time. Durant, one of my favorite players ever, tearing his Achilles uh, right before free agency. But Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback, my favorite quarterback ever, finally coming to my team. And it's Monday nights, the world watching. Top five defense, all Garrett and Breeze, they drafted well. And this man, 4 plays into the season, tore his Achilles, bro. Like I just thinking about it makes me nauseous. The Jets are always a perennial favorite to win the offseason. Benji. R9 19831. Not really. The Jets aren't like big off-season winners a lot. Like that's not a thing. It's happened a couple of times. It happened actually. How many? Is it a couple of times, or was it just the year they traded for Aaron Rodgers, where it's like they won the offseason? So that's not like a thing that happens often. That defense was too good not to be in the playoffs. Plus, hearing the crowd pop on the Brees Hall first one was fun. Let me try to pull up that Brees Hall run against the Bills first play Monday Night Football, just because I want to bask in my own misery. Like, how fun was that? Oh my goodness. I'm gonna pull it up for y'all. Here we go. Hang on. We're gonna do this together as a family. Here we go. Y'all ready? Man.
Gets it. Breaks it. Out of bounds near the 40.
Dude. This is when Zach's in the game now, so like we're all heartbroken anyway. Um that's guys. That's headlines wise, I meant. Not really. The Jets don't really. When did the Jets win the offseason? You think I'm confused? About what? Oh, the Garrett Wilson touchdown. The terrible Zach Wilson throw. What an awful Zach Wilson throw. That's Garrett made an unbelievable catch on. A terrible throw from Zach Wilson. Yeah, man. You guys just took me down a miserable path. I came on here and I've been on here for an hour now, ripping the organization. And somehow we ended up rewatching the Brees Hall run after the Jets forced, I think it was a 3-and-out on Buffalo, right? It might have been Buffalo might have picked up a first down. I don't quite recall, but they got the ball back, or they got the ball for the first time. Brees runs to the 40. Man, we were so excited. Now I'm gonna go like cry myself to sleep. I'm so mad you guys took me down that path. Man, that's brutal. I do appreciate you guys though. This was fun. I had a blast. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm actually gonna talk some Giants. I'll hop on the stream here. So follow me on follow me on X, on Twitter, on Instagram, and subscribe to the YouTube page. I'll be on here talking Giants with one of my friends who's a Giant fan. I've also got a Nick conversation coming up with Jeff Johnson tomorrow. So a whole lot of content to get to. We will do that tomorrow. So peace and love, y'all. Appreciate y'all chiming in. Holla at your boy.